Okay. So now we can continue. All right. So this right here is the interface of Android Studio when installed. But of course, this is try to show almost every component in Android Studio. We will not be using all this, but we'll try as much as possible to introduce you to all the important components that you have in Android Studio that would be beneficial to the work that you do. Here is a link to download Android Studio. So if we click on this link, it's gonna take us to it's gonna bring us here, where you can just download Android Studio. So you can see I picked the image from here. You download Android Studio, and the process to install it is pretty much very simple. You just follow the guide on the screen, and you should simply be done when the guide is finished. Okay, so I am working on with the understanding that you have already downloaded Android Studio. So we go to the next screen, which is the things that we'll be looking at today. So we'll be looking at what we call the project structure of an Android app. A very important file called build.gradle. It doesn't begin with a capital B though. Then we'll look at how we could set up the emulator. We'll also look at an SDK manager where you configure settings for different different Android versions. So you can run your app on, say, the newest Android version or older Android versions. We'll also look at a very important component, which is a terminal. Most of you on the Linux ecosystem already know this. On Android, it's just the command prompt. But a Linux one is what is used in Android Studio. So we'll be looking at that. We'll also try out the debugger, how we could debug errors in our code. And then we'll look at the theme, the type, and the color of Jetpack Compose. I will create a very small sample project, just very minimalistic, so that I could show you the various components of an Android app. And then if time permits, we'll look at the resources for the device explorer. The Android Studio preferences. I'm using preferences here because I'm working on a Mac. On Windows, it's going to be, the name is going to be different, but the settings are going to be the same. So I do not exactly remember the name for Windows. That's why I left preferences here. And then every Android developer savior is this guy here, invalidate and restart. If everything else fails and this guy doesn't save you, then you are in big trouble. That was meant to be a joke. But this guy is super, super important, invalidate and restart. And then we'll run a sample, a very simple app, and just see what we can do. Technically, this is all that I have in my slides, because I think this is an exercise session and we should be doing stuff rather than reading stuff. So we've read things a bit. Let's go into code. Let me find. All right. Do you still see my screen?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. All right. So when I open my Android Studio, this is what I am greeted with. I had a lot of projects here, but I had to delete them just so I could make this look simpler for you. So I could start from here by clicking on new project, in order to see the interface. Or I could open any of these existing projects in order to see the interface. But I'll start from a very fresh slate. There are things here that you can look at, Learn Android Studio today. It's a link that will take you somewhere to teach you about Android Studio. This was an integration I did. I don't actually remember, but it shouldn't be there. So not everything here may be visible in yours. I think the first 4 at least should be there. So we can start a new project by clicking on New Project here, or by going to File at the top and then New and New Project. So I'm just going to go ahead to create a new project. And in this course, we are transitioning from using the XML layout that Google or Android apps have previously been using to build apps to the new way that apps are going to be built on the Android platform. It's called Jetpack Compose, or simply Compose. So Google has introduced this new way where you do not write your layout separately and then your code separately and then try to bind them. You write everything in code. You declare your UI in code. So that is the way we are going to go. So we'll be trying out the newest way of writing Android applications using Compose. And so you could see here that by default is the empty activity that is selected. If you went with this, it's going to use the XML based. So we would use the empty compose activity. So we're going to select this empty compose activity. And then we're just going to click next. And the name of our application, let's call it mobile computing. And you notice that once I was writing the name here, it was automatically being put here as well as part of my package name. All right, so this is another important thing that I would want to highlight, the package name. The package name is what makes your application unique when deployed to the store. So you can have several apps of the same name. For instance, if we went to the Play Store and we searched for an app like a dictionary, you will see so many dictionaries, but they are all accepted there because although their names are the same, their package names are different. So Google or the Google Play Store would not accept the same package name for the same app. And so they introduced this, and it's a recommended way. It's a reverse, basically the reverse of your website. So it's usually www.codewave.com. And so they switch it and it becomes com.codewave. The name of your project. This can be long. This doesn't necessarily have to be com. It can be IO. It can be org. It can be me. It can be anything. Just enough to make it unique. All right. And so this is going to be the location of my project. And then the language that we'll be using is Kotlin, and Kotlin is selected by default because Jetpack Compose works with Kotlin. And then there is a minimum SDK. If you choose over here, depending on which one you choose, it's going to tell you how many percentage of devices your app could run on. And so if we pick the API 28, it's going to tell us that our app is going to run on just about 69% of all devices in the world. If we pick the latest, 12.0, it means that our app is going to run on less than 1% of devices, meaning that less than 1% of Android devices actually run on Android 12.0. So you try as much as possible to pick the least, so your app would be able to run on as many devices as possible. However, some features that you may need may require higher levels of the API, the minimum SDK. And so if you are going to be using a feature that is not available on API 21 or Android 5.0, but begins from Marshmallow, then you would have to set this as a minimum. And that means that your app is going to work on 94.1% of devices, which is okay because it provides the functionality that you want and it's targeting the mobile devices that you want to target. So just for demonstration purposes, I'm going to leave this at API 23. And all that we have to do next is to click this finish button. So looking down here where my cursor is, you can see that the app is building. It's configuring stuff. So it's going to take some time to build. And
sorry, I interrupt. Can I ask a question?
Yeah, sure.
In the previous windows, can we change the setting during when we are writing our code?
Can you change what?
The previous setting.
Just a moment. If I went to new project. Not this one, right?
No.
Here?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, can we change what?
When we are writing code, can we change this, for example, the last one?
Oh, yes, yes. This minimum SDK, yes, we can change it. And I'm going to show you where you can change this.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so say you selected 21, for instance, and you start working on your app and you realize that there is a feature that you need to use that unfortunately is not backwards compatible. We call this thing backwards compatibility. It means that it was introduced in a later feature. Maybe it was introduced in API 26, but Google offers the opportunity for you to be able to use it on API 21. That is backwards compatibility, but not all the features are that backwards compatible. So if it is not backwards compatible, then you really need it. It's a key component of your application. Then you would have to update your API level to maybe that 26 in order to get it to run. And that is totally fine. Do not be too concerned about the minimum SDK, although it is important, but you need to establish a target that, okay, my app only runs on this set of devices, and that is it. If the person does not have that kind of device, or if the Android version of the person's phone is not up to that particular level, then the person cannot use the app. All right, so I'll show you how we can change this. We'll change this in the build.gradle. Excuse me. Okay, so this is our very app. We are here finally. Over here is the project structure. So you can see over to the left, a project is slightly highlighted. Then we have our resource manager. We would come to this later, but we'll focus on the project, and your project is always going to be highlighted. Down here is the structure of the main activity, the activity that is currently being selected. I do not use this much. I do not use this favorites much either, but there is this important one, build variants. And currently our module, I'll come to the explanation of what a module is later, but just consider this app, which contains our application. This is our app. Consider it as a module, okay? It is one big component that is independent of itself. It means that it can exist on its own. So it is a module, and it has a build variant called debug and release. So it means that we can run two versions of the same thing. One is a release. And so this release is what, if you are building for the store, you'd have to build a release. But to run on your local device, during development, it is the debug version. So the debug version will create some keys and allow you to be able to test your app. But if you're going to release on the Play Store, then you would have to configure those keys. And that one, you have to use the release variant. There can be multiple variants here, a lot that you can create. I am not too familiar with creating additional ones. I just use the debug and release. And for this particular exercise sessions, or for this course, you are technically just going to be using the debug version. But I'm just making you aware that there could be more. And so if you happen to be working as an Android developer in a company, you are likely to see more build variants here. All right, there is another important thing that I would want you to look at in Android Studio is this here. We see that Android is selected. And so our project is just focusing on the part of the code that we are concerned with, which is technically you have to come into the Java. Our app consists of a manifest, a Java, and an RES, a resource folder. Okay, the manifest is where, let's start from the manifest from the top here. The manifest is where the definition of your application and its components are. Everything that you declare within your application would come into the manifest. If it is not in the manifest, and you run, you are going to receive an error that it has not been defined yet. And so this activity, for instance, was created for us, and it was automatically added to the manifest. So if we created another activity, we would have to come in here and add that particular activity. Since there is no other activity in the app currently, only the main activity is available. So that is what is suggested. If there was another one, it would be. And you always provide a name alongside its path. In subsequent exercises, we will be using multiple activities. So you will see us define them here. All right, and the application, this has been forced on us. Okay, so for instance, this is giving us an information that on SDK version 23 and up, your app data will be automatically backed up. And so we do not need to, we can tell Android that, okay, no, please do not back up our app. We don't want a backup. Just leave it as it is. Or we can say, okay, yeah, it should remain true. That means it should be backed up. This icon here is going to be your app icon, the icon that will be seen in, or the icon that you see when you go to the launch mode of your Android Studio. Just let's see how CPY. I'm gonna just share my Android app. Excuse me, my Android phone. Okay, so this is my phone. I'm just copying the screen to this emulator so you could see. And so these icons is what we have in this IC launcher. So you can see this is an image. And so you just have to change the image. And when you run your app, it's going to pick that particular icon. It is the same thing, but this icon is just round. So sometimes you don't even need it, you can remove it. This supports right to left. I said yes. So in case we introduce a language or we translate our app to use a particular language that allows from reading from right to left instead of the natural left to right in English, then that is going to work. The next one is a theme, and it's generated a theme for us, and it's using the name of our application. Now, the theme is a very important component of Android apps, and we would come to that. It seriously affects the look and the feel of the application. So next in this application tag is the activity, which is the main activity we have, which happens to be our launcher activity. So this intent filter is telling us that, okay, our app is going to be the main app and is going to be the launcher. What happens is that we can actually create, if we created, say, an activity that we say is called login activity, all right? It's red because I haven't created it yet. And before we come to the main activity, we say that, okay, maybe the main activity should be where our app actually resides. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to have a login before the main activity. Then we would have to move this entire intent filter into the login activity. When we move it here, it means that when we run our app, the first activity that is going to run is going to be the login activity. So the user will need to go get to the login activity before they will be able to get to the main activity. All right, currently, since it is here, it means that when we run the app, this main activity is what is going to run first. All right, so every time we declare a new activity or a service that we will be working with, we will have to define it in here, the manifest. So this is kind of like the table of contents of your application. Next, we're going to close this manifest and we're going to go into the Java file. Inside the Java, we're using Kotlin, but it still uses Java, which is interesting. But well, Kotlin is going to be compiled into Java anyway to run on the Java Android, Java virtual machine. But here in this Java folder, we have 3 packages. Then the package of our application, the same name, but here Android tests, and the same name, but here just test. All right, so over here, we are going to be writing our unit tests. Time will not permit us in this course to write unit tests, but maybe, just maybe, if we're able to make time once, we would try out a unit test. Over here is what we call instrumentation tests. It's rarely have I written an instrumentation test. I would basically just write unit tests to make sure that my functionality works. And then here would be where we write our code. All right, so most of the time you will be opening this particular side of the project. And with the Jetpack Compose structure, you have what we call the UI.theme. This technically means that there is a UI folder and there is a theme folder. And that theme folder is the only component of the UI folder. And that is why it is structured this way. And so inside it, I can do this. I can just add a new package and call it. Yeah, so instead of theme, I'm going to move back to UI and I'm going to call it home. Okay, so now it has split the theme folder. Now you can see that all the things we were seeing previously were just under theme and not under UI. Okay, so this is where the magic is going to be happening. But currently there is a theme and that theme includes color. So these are default colors that have been generated for us. We can add different colors in there. Val green, and we can use this structure, or we can just call color.green. like this. And we're going to have green here. And so if we want to see how this guy is defined, I think it should be in this color. Okay. No, it's not in the graphics of color. It should be in some other color folder. We'll come to this later on. But here we can define as many colors as we want, especially if we know the hex values. So over here, it is the last 6 are the hexadecimal values of the color. And this 0x FF is a placeholder that is put in front of it to make it something. I don't remember, I have to check for you. But this is a real color at the back. And so these 200 and 500 and 700 you are seeing is technically a way of showing they are all purple, as you can see. It's showing the strength of the color. So purple 200 is lighter than purple 500 and it's lighter than purple 700. So it's just the how strong the color is. They provide different versions of color to it. So you are going to end up using these variables in the application if you want to assign a color to something. Then we come to shape. Basically, this is all that I have used. You create an object of shapes and a small shape. How round do you want this? How round do you want the edges to be? That is what a rounded corner shape is. So the rounder you want it to be, you can increase this value, say to 20, the dpa. It means that the edge is going to be rounder. And we'll be using this. We'll be using this in our exercise sessions coming up. And I think we'll be doing this next week. So when we start doing working with layouts, this is for small shapes and medium shapes and large shapes. So we can decide whether we are going to use a small one, the medium one, or the large one. And of course, we can set different variables. We can say that when it's small, we want the edge to be very rounded. When it is medium, not that rounded. And when it is large, we don't even want any rounded. So it's just going to be the rectangle shape. Then comes in the theme. Just gonna clear this. All right, so in the theme, they make use of the colors that we saw here. And they create 2 different kinds of themes, the dark theme and the light theme. So with the dark theme, we have a different set of dark color palettes that consist of the dark colors. And so technically when we are having the dark theme, we're going to be our primary color. Our primary color is the main color that we're going to be using. It's going to be purple 200, which is this one. And this is another variant of primary. It's going to be using the purple 700. And our secondary color is our supporting color. All right, and that is going to be using the teal 200. So having defined green here, for instance, over here, I could change this to use green. And you could see that it is picking it from my theme. This is happening inside my UI theme. And it gives me another option for picking this green color from color.green, which is in the graphics, but I'm going to pick this one. So we come here and we see that now this one is highlighted. And it was showing theme here, UI.theme, and the file itself is a color.kt, which is this color, happens to be under this UI.theme in my package. All right, so they define a set of light colors here as well. And the first time we come into contact with composable, this is what Jetpack Compose is all about. It puts everything into a composable function. So it's just saying that we can put this function anywhere. We are making this a very function that we can, a composable function means that we can use it and compose other things with it, or we can just put it anywhere to make something. And so this is also generated mobile computing theme. And what it does is it's a function that takes 2 parameters. Okay, pick this up. It's a function that takes 2 parameters. One is the dark theme, the other is the content. And then it's going to, in here, it's going to check that, okay, if the dark theme is true, that means that when we call this, what is a dark theme true, we can actually set this manually, but initially they define a value. So it's system dark theme. This is internally generated, and it's going to check if your device is actually currently using a dark theme. If it is, if you have manually set your device to use a dark theme, when we hover over it, we can see this function should be used to help build responsive UIs that follow the system setting. So if the system setting of your phone is set to a dark theme, then it is going to set this value to true. Because this value is supposed to be a Boolean, so it can either be a true or a false. And so over here, it comes into the function itself, then it checks if the value is true or false. So if this is not set to a dark theme, it's going to be false. And if it is false, then this is going to run. If true, then what's in this one is going to run. So if the dark theme is set, then it's going to assign this dark color palette, which is what has been defined here, to colors. If this here is false, then it means that this dark theme is going to be false, and it means that it is this light color palette that's going to be assigned to colors. All right. So it is interesting that we can do this in Kotlin. Previously, we would have to define, say, note I am using var in this case, colors is equal to, say, we'll have to do this. I hope I don't want to import anything in here. Well, first it should have been if dark theme, or technically Java will be doing this, colors is equal to, then we call dark theme palette. So ideally, this is what would have happened, but Kotlin simplifies it for us, and so you can say lift out if statement, and so it comes back to the same thing. It just brings the if statement out, and so we do not do 2 assignments in there. It puts the assignment outside, and that is what we are getting here. So it puts the assignment outside, and then it, based on a condition, whatever value is true or false in there is going to be assigned to the colors. And over here, finally, is where the theme is configured. So we assign the colors from here to our material theme. And then our typography is coming from our type. Here would come our shapes. It's coming from this shape object that we defined. And the content is this content here. And this content here is going to be injected. It's going to be the content of our application. So whatever screen we are having, which must be of a type composable, will be injected in there. And it's going to take, this theme is going to apply. That means that if our system is dark mode, or if we can also set this to true, but this is just an initialization. If we set it to dark mode true, then it's going to be using the dark mode colors. All right. If we set it to false, then it's going to be using the light colors. And here is where we define our typography. Our type is technically font, font family, font weight, the font size. We define it all here. So when we start writing the layout, we'll see how we can basically use this better. All right, maybe we can define the body one. We can define a caption that when we see a caption, it should be of a certain font size, or it should be of a certain font type. If you took the HCI course or the social computing course, I think they also use Figma, you were introduced to designing interfaces. And so you can say all your headings use a particular font type or a particular font size. You can define one here as say a header, and I need to put a comma here. Thanks. Oh, what am I doing? And we can define whatever it is that we want to define in here, all right, for the header, and then you're going to use it. All right, so we'll be coming to this later on. Do you have any questions yet before I go to the main activity? All right, so this is our main activity, and if we run the app, this is what is going to run currently. We define a class called main activity that extends component activity. This component activity is provided by the Android system. It's the default constructor. And this bracket, these two brackets here, open and close, just makes this a constructor of the component activity. And in there is the onCreate method. Whenever you see fun, it means that whatever is coming after it is a function, right? So we are overriding this onCreate function from this component activity. And all that we are going to do is that we are going to set content for our screen. And the content that we are going to be setting for our screen is going to be using the mobile computing theme from here, which is this theme. And you can see, because we provided an initial value for the dark theme, it is not used here. So all that is used next is, let me just clear these two and that, is the content, which is a composable. So all that is provided next is the content for this theme, which is this guy. That is what we are putting in here. And so the content as defined here must be a composable type. And so we call this surface. It is the central, one of the central components of the material design system. It allows us to control coloring and the look of the interface, basically. So we call surface, which is definitely a composable. And for us to find out, we can just, if you're using a Mac, you can just press the command. I think Windows, it should be either Alt or Control. I think it should be control. Hover over it and press the control, and you see its definition here, and you can see that the surface is actually a composable. All right, it is a composable, so it actually fits into this. If it is not a composable, it is not going to work. It's going to throw an error. So the team is only going to take a composable. And so it's taking a composable of surface, and we apply a background, a color to it. And our color, we are saying is we are taking it from the material theme, colors.background. We can command click on that as well, and find out where background. Okay, this is background. Where is background color? Okay, here. So when we are using the light mode, the background is going to be white. This is defined in Android. We cannot edit it. As you can see, the shape here looks different. And then in dark colors, background is of a certain type 1 to 12, 12, 12. I don't know what color mode that should be, but it should be dark, I think. All right, so if our theme is actually white, then this should be, if it's light, then this should be white. And if it is dark, then this should be something else, 12, 12, 12. And then our surface, if we hover over it, you can see it also has a content. The content is what goes into the surface. So the theme has a content, is whatever goes into that theme, which is going to be our screen, and the surface has a similar one. So with a surface, we can, this modifier is used to provide attributes to the surface function. The shape, we can provide it with a shape. It means it can take a shape, it can take a color. The color is what is being used here. And so it's taking a shape. It can take the color of its content color. It's going to be basically the color of the text and stuff like that. It can take a border. It can also take an elevation. And then finally, it can take an additional content. It means that we can compose something else and put in there. And that is what we are doing over here with this greeting. So if you come to greeting, it is a composable. And all that a greeting is doing is taking a name, and then it is displaying a text, hello, and showing the name. All right. So over here, that name is what is being provided as Android in here. So we call greeting and we provide Android. So the text that is going to be displayed will be hello, Android. Okay. So this is technically our first application, but we also see something interesting down here. But before I come to this preview, let's take this add composable off. And here we see an error, which is interesting because this is technically a function. A function should be able to declare anything, right? But it says that functions which invoke composable functions must be marked with a composable annotation. That is because this text here is a composable. So technically, because we are using a composable inside our function, it means our function must also be composable. But if I comment this out, then the error goes away. Okay, but since my text, which is inside my function, is a composable, then I need to provide the composable annotation here as well, and it works fine. So Android Studio is intelligent such that it is able to tell you when there are certain known issues, but not all issues would be available. Definitely you will be having bugs that you would have to fix if things look okay to Android Studio, but are actually not right. Okay, so over here to the top right corner, you see code. So that is why code is currently selected. So all we are seeing is code. And before I go to the split and the design, I'll come to the preview, but you should be able to see this thin line here, this thin gray line. It is a very important line. It tells you that you shouldn't write on one line, on this line. You shouldn't write your code to be longer than this line. When it's going to be longer, you need to break. Okay, so that your code can be easily visible. Now, you are seeing all this because I am extending my laptop. So this is the extended display that I am using, which is bigger than my laptop screen. And so things are much larger and you're able to see. But if you are working on a smaller screen, you may not be, you may not have this additional space or even this additional space. Things are going to be smaller. And so in that way, you are advised not to exceed this length. This marking is it's nothing. It can be, and so the, okay, so you can actually write over it, but it is put there for a purpose to encourage you that, okay, when you see this, it means that you are getting too close. It means that reading your code is going to be difficult. So you need to break. And a very good tool that Android provides for you to make your code really nice is to come to the top here and click on code and click this guy, reformat code. You can also learn the shortcut, reformat code. So it's going to just restructure it. Let's say, oh, I want to mess things up a bit. Yep. And okay. So if I select this whole and I come to code and I say reformat, it restructures it for me. So it makes your code readable. So you can use that a lot. And I use it quite a lot. All right, if we come to split, it's going to split our screen. And now you can see that the space has become smaller. All right, and what happens with a split is that we can preview whatever it is we are doing here. We can preview it here, how it looks here without necessarily having to run it on the phone. And then when we come to design, it's just going to be the design interface. So oftentimes it's going to be here, but if you're too sure what you're doing, you could just run in code. So this preview here, what this preview is saying is that we want to preview whatever it is that is going on, whatever it is that we are defining, we want to preview it here. So it just uses the preview annotation, and it's also a composable because our theme is a composable. Because we are using our theme in here and defining the greeting, which is also a composable, then our preview must be a composable. But for us to be able to see it here, all that we need is to use the annotation preview. And so if I build, awesome, we get our first error. Okay, we'll come to this build, but when we build successfully, then whatever we are doing in here, or whatever it is we are doing in here actually should be visible over here for us to see. Now, this error is taking us to a very important place called the build.gradle. There are two build.gradles. If you look at the Gradle script here, we have build.gradle, the project level, and build.gradle, the module level, which is the mobile computing.app, which is this guy. So if we click on this Android, and we click on projects, it's going to give us a lot more structure. And over here, you can see that this is the build.gradle for the project itself. And our app is technically just a module in there. So you can see this Gradle is also a module. This is for the IntelliJ, the ID, and this is also for Gradle. We don't touch these. All right. If we expand this app, we will see that the app has its own build.gradle here. So over here in the project level, you see that it says that this is a top level build file where you can add configuration that is common to all sub projects or modules. So this is one module. We can add several modules in here, and it's called a modular architecture. And that is considered a better way than to put everything into one module, which is your app module. Okay, so this is the project level. We would not be touching this. We do not usually touch this. If we have any dependencies, it is advised that we put them in the build.gradle for that particular module. All right, so this issue here is inside the app. You can see the path is inside the mobile computing app build.gradle. So it is here. And so oftentimes I don't use a project folder. I just use the Android project folder that is just going to focus on my app module for me. And so we are going to open this mobile computing.app build module, build Gradle, excuse me. And it has a set of plugins that I used. And this Android one is the major thing. We will fix this issue in a bit. But like the lady asked question earlier, if you create your projects, can you change stuff later? Yes, and most often this is where you make that change in here. So when we created a project, for instance, this is our app ID. Our app ID was the package name that we gave. Okay, that makes our application, that becomes our app ID, and it makes our application unique. Now, this is the compile SDK. It is Android SDK version 31, excuse me. It means that when we run our app, it's going to be running with the latest. This is not actually the latest. I think the latest is 32. But it's going to be running with the SDK version 31. And over here, you could also see that the target SDK is 31. So we are targeting applications that are running with SDK 31 and under, but with a minimum of SDK 23. So the minimum SDK is 23, and the one we are targeting is 31. And the SDK that we have on this computer to compile, that is to build our application, is the version 31. So oftentimes your target and your compile SDK should be the same. This version code and version name is what you see when you get new updates and they tell you that WhatsApp, the latest version is version 1.1.0 or version 2.1.1. That is what happens here. And each version code has a version name. So this one increments by 1, but this one can have ... Okay, so if we build a new version of the app and we want this is going to increment to 2, but this can be 0. Okay, you can add an additional 1 when it is at 1. So say your initial version is 1.0.0. All right, this is what a user is going to see, but this is going to be used by Google Play to ensure that your version has actually changed. If you upload a new version of your app, but you do not change these values, Google Play is going to reject your update. It's going to tell you that an APK already exists with this signature. All right. So say we build our first application, we deploy to the store, and we want to build our second application. Again, would have to increment to this value, and we could increment this for minor fixes or bug fixes. So you deploy an app and you realize that something is not working. You fix that quickly. You do minor increments here, bug fixes here. If you want to say increment or you want to improve something, it can be, it's not going to be a major change. So you can make a fix here. It's not a bug fix. It's maybe just a small change that you're making to the way the application works or looks or something like that. But if it's a major change, it contains significant changes, then you would have to update this to 2. And oftentimes when you update the first one, everything, every other thing is reset. So 2.0.0. And then if there are bugs and you make fixes, you can go to 2.0.1, you can go to 2.0.2. And with each, as this one changes, with each change here, this number is going to increment. So each time you make a change, this number would increment. All right, and don't be concerned about these numbers anyway. It doesn't matter what number I say, it can be 1,000. As long as the application works fine, that is okay. This is introduced by Android for running instrumentation tests. This allows us to be able to use vector drawables within our application. Vector images scale, so they don't become pixelated when they are stretched or when the interface is changed. We also have build types. We have the release build here that we are saying minifile is set to false. That means that the APK will not be shrunk when you build for release. And ProGuard files, this guy helps you to protect against so many things. We would come to this when we want to deploy our app later on. Compile versions, compatibility is this has the what version, Java version that we are going to be working with. It automatically set to version 1.8. And that's what you can see here, JVM 1.8. You can change this based on your Java version and stuff like that, but oftentimes I leave it. And here are the dependencies. The dependencies are the things that make your app work. So these are technically libraries that we'll be using, and we'll be adding a lot of libraries in here as we go along in our development. So next week, you'll see us make a lot of changes in here. And one thing I love to do is that I always name my libraries. It's going to come in these names, but I love to just leave a comment and put a name, the name of the library there. So we'll be dealing with these next week. Over here, you could see that some have version numbers and some are using the Compose version. And here it's this highlighted because it's saying that there is a newer version of Compose, which is supposed to be 1.0.5, but this current version is 1.0.0. If I command click on Compose, it should, okay, it doesn't take me to where Compose is. Compose should be in the main project, yeah. Compose says at 1.0.1. Do not respond to this. Just let it be. It's going to run anyway. If you change it, you will have to rebuild a lot of things. So whenever you make a change here, whenever you make a change, Gradle is going to tell you that you have made a change, and so you need to sync. So you have to just click this sync now, and then it's going to rebuild, and it tells us that it was successful. So this is good. But with the issue that we had over here, this build and refresh. Now we're saying that the Gradle plugin requires Java 11 to run, but you are currently using Java 1.8. I don't know how it's going to be. I am actually using Java 11 on my machine. So how do I resolve this issue? It is one of the things that we're going to look at, which is Okay, we've looked at project structure, we looked at build of Gradle, we looked at these guys haven't showed resources. Okay, but it is this guy, this Android Studio preferences. All right, so to get that to work, we'll have to go to Android Studio and preferences. I still do not remember the name on Windows. But if you can find this symbol, I don't know, but this is the command symbol, so I don't know, but it should be somewhere here, either here or under files on Android. But on Mac, it is at preferences. And this preferences comes up. Excuse me for a minute. All right. So here you can change the look and feel of your Android Studio. You can change a lot of stuff. If we change the theme, it's gonna look this bright. But I love the dark color, so I'm just gonna apply the dark. Okay, but let's go to the most important part, the reason why we are here. We are going to go to build, execution, deployment, and we are going to go to the build tools. Our issue had to do with the build when we tried building. So we are going to go to the build tools, and we are going to go to Gradle. All right, and you can see that it is saying that Gradle plugin requires Java 11 to run. You are currently using Java 1.8. And truthfully, when you come in here, you can see that it is set to 1.8. So I'm going to click on this and I'm going to change it to Java 11. This is what I have installed on my laptop, but you can also look at the Android Studio Java Home is also using 11, and the embedded JDK is also 11. So you can select any of these. All right, see which one actually meets, and then you select that. So I can also here add a JDK or download a JDK. But I'm just going to select my 11 and apply. Okay. And then I'm going to go back to build and refresh. Now we can see the build output here. At the bottom, you can see some additional tabs down here, the profiler, the logcat, build, the terminal, which is part of the things that we'll be looking at. So here is our build output. Over here in this log, we'll be seeing logs from, we are seeing logs from our phone, or the phone that I am connected to. And currently I'm not debugging any processes, but there are 3 applications on the phone that the logs is able to take data from, and I can select which one it should show. But our build is done. Well, our build is done and we can't see anything. Interesting. Well, excuse me, I'm not the smartest Android developer in the world. So let's see, build and refresh again. Ah, okay. Now, all right, so this is all that we have. It's such a shame. All that we have been able to do is just hello and then the name Android. So we can change here to Aku, and then, oh, excuse me. This is the app itself. Let me leave this at Android. Okay, so immediately I change the name, it is updated here as well. Also, you see this icon here with the hand, the finger, you can click on it and you're going to set it into interactive mode. And interactive mode means that if you have buttons, you'll be able to click on them. And at least even here, when I make a click, you are able to see. So you can interact with your design even here, and you can always stop the interactive mode and just come back to the layout mode. All right, so I was going to show you the terminal. Here you can run I'm currently running my emulator. And so my cursor is not available, but you can always click on this new session and you still have the terminal. And you can run all Linux commands. You'll be able to see this. Let's see if we can initiate Git. Currently, we don't have, this is not under any version control, but we want you to use version control. We want you to be able to upload the app to GitHub. And so we can just say git init, and okay, so yeah, we have initialized Git right now. So if we did Git status, yep. So we just put everything under version control right now. So whatever changes we make is going to be under version control, which is cool. We just did that with one line in the terminal. And here is the profiler of your application. When you're running the application, you can check the profile, the processes and stuff like that. Don't be concerned about the color. It is because we have put them under version control, but we haven't added them yet. And so this is for this small part, this small side, we would look at these a bit. When we click on this, we are going to run the app. And over here, you're going to have the devices that you can run on, currently connected to my phone. And so it is picking this, my phone, the Google Pixel. So if I click this, if this one is selected and I click the run, it's going to run the application on my phone. We can try that for a moment. And I'm just going to bring my emulator here. And when you run, when you click on run, always look down here, you see that it will be building. Sometimes it can take long, it depends on how heavy your application is. But here, this is our app. So the preview is not what came, it is what we have in the main activity that actually is shown. So the greetings, hello, Android. And so we can change the name, we can change this, and it's going to be, let's do hello world. Okay, so when you are already running your application, there are two additional functions that you can use. This one, which is apply changes and restart. This one, which says that apply code changes. So it's just going to change the part of the code that you made changes to. And this one is going to stop the whole app and rerun it. So let's try this one to see if it's going to change. So down here, it is building. And it succeeded, but it wasn't rendered. So this guy didn't help us in that case. So let's go to apply changes and restart. Well, looks like that one didn't help us either. So finally, we click on this one. And yeah, that one took it. So hello world. Sometimes when you make a slight change, this is just going to apply it in there, but I don't know why you had to re-render the whole thing for it to be visible this time. Okay, so whilst we're running, we can then attach a debugger if we want to say, see what is happening within our application, or over here, let me put it here instead. And so we are going to run this. We know this is going to run, but we want it to stop when it gets here. So we put a breakpoint. You can just click and it goes off. You click and it comes back. we put a breakpoint here. So when it executes to this point, it's going to stop. All right, we want to see what the value of the name object is. Since we are already running our application, if we want to run with debug, I would have to click this. But since we are already running the application, you don't have to stop the application and run with debug. So you click on this attach debugger. So when you click on that, this dialog is going to pop up and it's going to ask you, okay, this is the phone and this is the current app that is running. I'm like, yeah, I want to attach to this particular process. So I attach it now, and I would have to rerun because I'm not interacting with the application in any way. Let me see. No. If there was a function that we were interacting with, then yeah, this guy would just have triggered. All right, let's click on this debug instead. So it's going to stop and it's going to run in debug mode. Okay, so having run in debug mode, it stops the execution here. And then it shows us that, okay, the name of the app is the name, this variable is actually containing weld, okay, which was provided here. And you have these options. You can extend, you can see the name objects in here. Over here, you can see a lot of things. There is, you can step into, you can step over, you can step into, you can force step into the various components. You can step out. But one important thing is this function here, evaluate expression. And here you can evaluate, say the name. It can be, you use it to check what a value is. So it can even be a Boolean. It can be a Boolean sometimes. Let's see if this is going to work. Yeah, so I am evaluating, I'm asking if the name is equal to weld, and it's telling me it is true. If, let's say, is a name equal to hello, and it's telling me it's false, so we can run evaluation expressions here. So if you are looping through and some things are failing and it doesn't work, you can use this evaluate expression to actually check whilst you are breaking through. All right, so we can resume our app by clicking on this button here, and it's going to resume the application, and it's just going to run to this point. Okay, there is a question in there. All right, Ville, thank you. On Windows, the settings. So I think that should be under files and settings, right? I don't think they have under this option there. I think it should be under file. Yeah. Okay, file and settings. Then you should see the same screen as I saw. I'll update the slides to do that. Someone is having an error when they run the app. Failed to install the following Android SDK packages as some licenses have not been accepted. Build tools. Okay, all right. So we are going to go then next. It's on this part. This is syncing AVD. Okay, so this is the SDK manager. All right, so to build your application on different Android versions, the SDK manager has been made available. It is this icon with a download, this box with download icon. When you click on it, it's going to open the SDK manager. It still opens the preferences where we were, but this is a shortcut. And so initially we came down here, and no, yeah, we came somewhere here. But because we are coming from this guy, it changes that this is just for this project, not for the whole. But the focus for this one is Android SDK. And you can see that I have currently installed the SDK for Android 11 and Android 10. So that means that I cannot run my app for Android API level 32 or, yeah. So you can select this, select that. Usually you just select the current one. And then you install, you can, okay, these are updates that I need. These are updates. Yeah, you can select these and then hit apply. And it's saying that the following are going to be installed. And I'm going like, okay, go ahead. And depending on your internet connectivity, it could take time. I should have actually installed just one so it to be faster. Okay, so it's done. Yeah, so once you have been able to do this, then you should be able to run on these versions of the platform. Also, you need this guy, Android SDK build tools under SDK tools. I have it, but it's using a dash because it says that I have an update available. And you need the NDK when you're going to be running C++ code, but we won't be using that, and CMake as well. And yes, if you need a Android emulator, you need to check that as well, and then definitely this guy. And it is always advisable to have the Google Play services. So this Google Play services will be available on the emulator. And yes, you apply. Okay, cool. So now that that is done, then we can come to this one here, the AVD manager. So click your AVD manager, and here we are going to be creating the emulator for your app. It is advised, it is highly recommended that you connect your phone and you use your phone, your Android devices. But if you do not have an Android device, maybe you use an iOS phone, then you can create a virtual device, a virtual Android device. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to create a new virtual device. So there are different categories. If you are building an application for a car, you are going to choose the automotive. If it's a tablet, if it's a wearable device, if it's a phone or a TV. All right, but we are building for a phone. And so we can select from here any number of whichever Android device you want. And then you just click on next. And then you choose the version of the system image that you want, which is technically the API level. This one is API 30. This one that runs Android 10, Android 11, excuse me. And I haven't had any recent ones. Let me go to the yeah, okay. So these are the recommended ones, but when you come to the x86 images, you can see the latest ones as well. So we can download. Again, why did I click on download? All right, hopefully it's going to be done soon. We can download that image so that when we download that image, the emulator will be able to run that version of Android. Okay, let me just go ahead and cancel this. All right, so you can download the one that you want. All right, and then it's going to be available. But currently I'm just going to select my R and I'm going to go next, and I can give this a name, and I'm going to say mobile computing emulator. All right, you can set up whatever orientation it is you want it in. You can change you can just go back and change the font type or the version that it should run. And then you click finish. And this just created an emulator here. And so to run the emulator, you just click this button. You just come and click this run button. All right, so it's connecting to my emulator now. All right, so once my emulator comes up, I can, okay, it automatically changes to the emulator. The emulator takes preference over the main device. And so when we run the application, now it's going to be running on the emulator instead. But while that is, okay, the emulator is almost ready. All right, so the emulator is technically an Android phone, and as you can see, everything is there. A very simplified application, has maps, Gmail. But I currently am not connected to the internet. I'm not connected to the internet because I'm using I have some configurations for VPN. VPN needs to be on for that to work. But I can just go ahead and run my app since my app doesn't require any internet connectivity to run. Okay, so here, we just run the app on the emulator. Please note that the emulator is heavy. And so that is why it is recommended that you use your phone where possible. All right, let's take a look at, we've looked at SDK manager, we've looked at a debugger, we've looked at a terminal, we've looked at emulator. Our device explorer, we haven't, and the invalidated restart, we've run the simple app. Okay, so we have device explorer, invalidate, and restart. All right, so the device explorer is here to the right. Okay, and it allows you to be able to access the components of your device, like the storage, the SD card. Basically, you won't be using this, but I just wanted to know the data in a particular application. You can find all the applications here. This includes other system applications and stuff like that. And so you have to find your particular application. For instance, I was building this yesterday. This is our application here. And we don't have any data in there, it's just cache, empty folder. So you can find, if we had defined a database, we might be able to find it here. All right, so that is what a device explorer is. It explores your device. Last but not the least is going to be this guy. File, invalidate, caches, and restart. This one. Now, this guy is super, super important. Sometimes Android Studio would keep track of your variables, will keep them in memory such that even when you do not need them anymore, they are still there. And when it happens that way, sometimes you get wrong values when you run your code. Okay, so it is always recommended that you invalidate everything that has been kept in memory. You invalidate it, and then you restart your Android Studio. So when you are facing issues, before you bang your head against the wall, before you cry, before you smash your computer, whatever it is, this is technically like restart, and for your phones or for your computers. When everything else fails, restart always works. It is the same here in Android Studio. When things are messing up, you think it should work, but it is not working. Please just exercise some patience. Come in here, invalidate and restart. Okay. It's always in your file, invalidate and restart. And after you have restarted, you come to build, you clean your project, always run clean. And when you're done running clean, you rebuild project. If things are still not in sync, if your files are still not in sync after that, you can come to the file and you'll find this sync project with Gradle files. Okay, and then you can click this sync project with Gradle file. It's going to rebuild Gradle and it's going to sync everything for you. So now this is the sync that is happening now. So this is my introduction to you on Android Studio. There is a lot more that we haven't looked at. A lot of these functions are already here. The SDK stuff is also here. And then this connection to Google Firebase. All right, this is for Git. We can commit stuff, we can push stuff to GitHub or whatever version control system you're using. But we'll be doing this, we'll be playing with this in the following weeks. All right, so this is technically it for today, I believe. And thanks for the responses in the chats. And Tangai, thanks for helping people out. I haven't run an Android Studio installation in a long while, so. But if anybody is still having issues, you can reach out to us and we will try our best to be helpful in getting this up and ready. But this is it. I didn't give you a 10-minute break because I was hoping to finish it earlier. But I made up all your time, so sorry. I'll try to incorporate a 10-minute break next week. All right, so next week we are going to be dealing with layouts, and we will try our possible best to create a layout with Jetpack Compose. All right, I would be building the applications, and I would be recording like we're doing with this one, and sharing the recording as well. And I think I'll be creating a GitHub project and be uploading the code there so you can still take a look yourself as well. So any questions? You can unmute your microphones and ask. That would go faster. I hope I didn't bore you too much. Okay, so if no questions, then you're free to leave and see you next week. And please try to do the training. I think Aku presented a link for training in the slides. Please try to get familiar with it. I wanted to do an intro to Kotlin today, but that couldn't happen. But we'll take a look at this next week. All right, we'll take a little, then we'll do the UI stuff. Then the following week we'll try a little, and we'll be using this Kotlin Play online tool to just write some Kotlin code and see how it works. All right, so thank you very much. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to stop the recording.